Bobby Shoemaker, Andrew Calvano, Tournament Talk on the Tournament Edge, Travers Day Recap Edition. Andrew, I just felt like it was too important of a day with Breeders' Cup implications for you and I not to go back and recap what we saw and what we thought of the horses moving forward into what is our biggest day. So without further ado, let's go right to race 7 of last week was the Grade 1 Ballerina. You know, you and I talked about this as far as Karina Mia was concerned. We thought she would be the favorite at the end of the day, but my goodness, she goes off at a very ridiculous price, in my opinion. And the 10-horse, Have You Gone Away, gets the victory. Tom Morley's first Grade 1 victory. I know it was very important to that camp. Your thoughts on Have You Gone Away, your thoughts on how the race shape played out, and any other horse you want coming out of that race?
Yeah, without a doubt. And Tom Morley's definitely been one of the top trainers on the night circuits. Seeing him race was very happy for him. And this is a horse that's been in top form for the past couple races here. And you can definitely see the horse improving with each start. The big thing that I realized in the morning, it was out for a while, but the switch to Johnny Velasquez really hit me in the morning. And, I tried to utilize this one more. Couldn't really catch him in the exotics that I used, playing some trifectas because my horse was out of it. But this is a horse that I definitely see moving forward. We definitely want this horse going out. It'd be curious to see if Johnny B would stick on this type of mount. I'm sure, a Todd Fletcher would have come around and probably have a better horse for him. But this is a pretty good horse going forward. Definitely want to see where she goes after Breeders' Cup, when she comes back to Belmont, or where she will go in the winter. But a horse I want to try, again, coming out of this race is Bird at the Wire. I thought this one was pinned in early, really had to run through some traffic troubles, but finished up the race well. Very sluggish early, but finished up strong, galloped out pretty good, and the finish was pretty tight. So Bird at the Wire was a horse that's proven herself before. She might be able to get back to the swing of things later on.
Well, Have You Gone Away has now won 3 consecutive starts. The horse seems to be getting better each and every time that she gets out on the racetrack. I listened to Tom Morley's interview earlier this week with Steve Bick. He believes that she can be very versatile. I think she showed that on Saturday. This is a horse that could be a player, let's face it, in any type of Breeders' Cup race that she's in. Your thoughts on By the Moon? I had this horse on one of my tickets in the 100K. Thought the horse was going to win the race inside the 16th pole, but just got beat by a better horse. But this is another horse who's on the improve. Javier Castellano obviously saw fit to be on this horse. I don't think this horse at the end of the day has anything to be disappointed in. Just got beat by a better horse that's going to be in a Breeders' Cup race.
Yeah, I agree with you. And this is a horse I believe we touched on when we were actually reviewing the race. And, you can't discount connections like Javier Castellano and Michelle Nevin, although she really hasn't been having the best of meets this year at Saratoga. She does have some pretty good crop, and this is definitely one of her better horses. It looked like this horse was sitting perfect, a perfect trip throughout the whole race, but like you said, Bob, she got finished by a better horse on the outside.
Karina Mia, I thought, was one of the most disappointing efforts of the entire card because this horse, on paper, had a distinct class edge. Horse I thought would love cutting back at 7 furlongs. Turned for home with really no excuse at all. And I know the PP says flatten out. I thought it was more than just flatten out. Very disappointing effort for Karina Mia. Your thoughts on her effort?
Yeah, without a doubt, Saratoga's always had the reputation of where these favorites just go to burn out. But, Bob, when we first mentioned the race, we saw the distinction in odds between number 8, Wavell Avenue, who was the morning line favorite of Karina Mia. And we both knew that this horse was the horse to beat. We also knew we weren't getting the 7-2, but I didn't expect even money on Karina Mia either. This horse, just struggled. Posted some pretty good fractions there, running along with Paula Silver Lining and Sarah Sis for the first opening quarter. Ran a little bit quick on my end. Just another horse that maybe compromised herself. Maybe Joel got a little too aggressive with this one early on. I think could have sat her back a little bit more. So I'd like to see where this one goes next, and hopefully get this one a little bit of an overlay.
Have you gone away with a win? Andrew and I are both in agreement that this horse, sky's the limit, and this horse could be a player when it comes to Breeders' Cup Day. Moving on, race 8, the Grade 1 King's Bishop. Andrew, when I read this race with you, I said to you that I thought that Dre Fong would have company up front. He had been running 21 and change at Santa Anita, drawing the 13 with speed on paper, drawn to the inside of him. I thought he'd be compromised from a pace perspective. And I looked after the first quarter, and it was 23-1, and I literally got up from my TV and walked away. Because at that point, I knew the race was over. The race was won after the first quarter of a mile. And I know that there was not only New York jockeys in this race, but I continue to scratch my head at the laziness out of the gate by some of these jockeys in New York. This horse was probably the most talented horse in the race to begin with, after the scratch of the other Bob Baffert horse. And for them to let this horse basically walk for his skill set on the front end after the first quarter, they gave him the race. I'll say this to you, though, before I let you talk. That horse can beat me on Breeders' Cup Day. He will have company up front on Breeders' Cup Day, and he'll have to prove to me that he can run 21 and change, sub-21, to get the job done. Your thoughts on the effort, your thoughts on this horse going forward?
Yeah, and this horse definitely brought his best stuff today, and I agree with you with the scratch of Jazzy Times, the other Bob Baffert horse. It just seemed like this one was going to have its way, and like you said, Bob, these imports come in from other parts of the country, and New York guys like to sit back a little bit and let them roll up front, and that's what we saw here today. It's difficult because when you're handicapping, you got to really tell what these shippers are going to do and whether they're going to be respected on the front end or whether they're not. A horse like Laubin in the Jim Dandy. That's another situation of that. I agree with you. I think this one's going to face some better horses in the Breeders' Cup, and with the connections, will probably be a short price. And my thing is that Breeders' Cup, I don't go for a horse that's less than about 4-1. And if it is, it's a horse like American Fair, who I know cannot lose that race. A horse I want to get here going forward is the horse that finished second with that race. That's Economic Model. This horse was pinned on the rail. The horse doesn't have too much early speed. Has a lot of tack. Had this one in a good position to close late. The winner was much the best. Obviously, this one was running into its shadows, but I think that rail kind of put a big disappointment for this one. I feel like if it was better posted, this one may have had a little better trip. I'm not saying he beats the Frong, but maybe closes the gap from the outside and not having to weave in and out of traffic from the rail. So Economic Model, a great horse that I've been tracking on for a while. Chad Brown, it's definitely a horse I'm going to want going forward.
I agree with you on the Economic Model, but I also am not ready to throw in the towel on Summer Revolution. The horse broke very, very poorly from the start, and at that point forward, the horse with that much inexperience, if you will, dealing with adversity the first time against this type of group. I'm not holding anything against that horse in this race. I still think that horse has a chance to be a powerhouse, and I thought the horse actually finished well, almost past the 11 for third, and again, the 11 and 13 were able to walk the dog early up front. Your thoughts on Summer Revolution? I still think this horse can be very special.
Yeah, and this seemed to be the wise guy pick of the day. I saw a lot of people on Twitter, social media picking this horse, and I threw my tickets. I was pretty deep in this race to start off the pick 4, and I really like this one. I agree with you, Bob. I think without an awkward start, this one could be a huge player. This is a horse that obviously has not had much experience, so this is a big test race, and we said that when we were first reviewing the race. So, stepping up into Grade 1 company for the first time and having a bad start, definitely reasons for this one to improve. I guess I'll bounce the conversation back to your way, Bob. Another horse I would like to have going forward is number 2, Fish Track Road, out of that race. I think this one has a little bit more speed that unfortunately was not shown on Saturday, and hopefully in a softer spot, could flip the table on this group.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold this race against Fish Track Road, to say the least. There's sometimes that horses just don't run well. They're not machines, and Sometimes they get bad rides as well. I don't think that this horse was at its best, but I do think that this horse got a bad ride as well. It needs to be on or near the lead to be a major contender. So let's move on to race 9. It was the Grade 1 4-go, 7 furlongs on the dirt. AP Indian, Andrew, I said this on Twitter on Saturday. Outside of California Chrome, I'm not sure that I've ever been as wrong about a racehorse than I have been about AP Indian. This horse has been a different animal over the past half year. Obviously went off at 1-1, should have won the race, but you're talking about another very impressive effort, not only visually but numerically, by a racehorse that most likely will go into his race in the Breeders' Cup being the favorite. Another powerhouse performance.
And I agree with you, Bob. And when this horse first beat you back on Marking, we thought Marking just got a little bit of a weird ride and was still a better horse than AP Indian. Then AP Indian proves himself again, and I remember I texted you in the morning, with the scratch of Marking, and I knew AP Indian was winning this race. I knew without Marking and Anchor Down, who was a little bit of a player on the front end as well. I knew this horse was winning the race, and I had to get off my original pick, just so I can kind of relap back into my tournament at the time. But this is a very, very good horse that's proved himself this summer. So we're going to see where this one moves forward. Like you said, Bob, probably going to be the favorite wherever this one goes in the Breeders' Cup. And it's going to be interesting to see here. Rarely do you see these connections. Joe Bravo and Arnold Decor out in the Breeders' Cup. So it's going to be a fun little race to watch. We'll see, where this one goes forward, but definitely a player from a pace perspective, but it's going to be short odds.
I thought Tamar Coos ran on very, very well for Mike Smith at 20-1. Could this horse's skill set be this 7 furlong distance? Because you can't take anything away from this effort. He was flying late. Could this be a player at this distance moving forward?
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, this is a Shadwell, Kieran McLaughlin horse, and most of those horses don't go off 21-1. Most of those horses are going off less than 5-1. I still think there's a little bit more potential in it here. I think this one's going to need to find a group where this horse can just learn how to be a horse again. Get this one in an allowance race and just try to pick up some wins, maybe an overnight stakes, whatever it may be. I thought the one was very impressive in the gallop out as well, Bobby. I'll agree with you. And So Walking Dude, I thought was in prime position, turning for home to win this race. But AP Indian did its thing. So Walking Dude, I'll also add. Next out, I'll take this 100%.
Yeah, I just don't think Star Walking Dude is Grade 1 type, but I thought with the price, on last week's show, it was worth taking it considering the connections. But as you could tell, just not good enough to beat this group. Still a very good horse that's going to make a lot of money on the NYRA circuit. So let's move on. Saratoga, race 10 on the card, the Grade 1 Sword Dancer, the best turf horse in the country, arguably, possibly, maybe the world. Gets it done. 127 time form U.S. speed figure. Just a ho-hum 112 buyer with ease. Your thoughts on the performance, your thoughts on the race before I give you my thoughts.
Yeah, without a doubt. And like you said, Bob, this is one of the best horses in the world. Luckily, being a young handicapper myself, I guess really developing into the game these last couple of years. I've seen California Chrome. I've seen American Pharoah, and the Flintshire is a horse that I rank right among them. And obviously, the old timers in the sport have so many other horses to list off. But seeing this horse and seeing what he does on a race to race basis, I mean, I don't think this one can lose a race this year. And if it comes back, next year, I don't think this horse will lose a race. In my opinion. This is definitely the best turf horse in the world, without a question in my mind, Bobby, and just proved that much the best on Saturday.
The only way that this horse ever gets beat is if he gets boxed in on the rail or gets a bad trip, which should have happened on Saturday. Chad Brown had 2 other horses in that race, and Andrew, I really don't have an issue with the fact that he's got other horses in the race. I don't even have an issue with the quote-unquote rabbit, but there were 2 certain incidences in that race that we just don't need in horse racing. And I won't go into detail with them, but basically it was made easier for that horse to win than what it already was. And I thought some horses gave up some room and some ground and interfered with other horses to make it easier on what I think is arguably the best turf horse in the world to begin with. We just don't need that in our game. But despite of all that, I have ultra respect for Flintshire. I think he'll go to the Breeders' Cup and most likely win it unless Europe brings something over here that's Golden Horn-like. And from what I've heard, from the little bit that I've heard, Andrew, there's no Golden Horn coming over here from Europe this year. So we'll move on to race 11 on the card. It's the Grade 1 Travers. It was the big one. Andrew, I've seen a lot of performances in my life that have been good, and I've seen a few that have been great, and I have seen maybe 2 or 3 that I would consider elite performances. And I've saw 2 of them this year, one of which was obviously frosted on Met Mile Day, and I said to myself, I may never see a performance like that again. And then less than 2 months later, I saw a performance that was better than what I saw in the Met Mile. Arrogate put forth an effort unlike any 3-year-old performance that I've ever seen at a racetrack that has had so much history and it had so much talent. He runs a 139 Timeform US speed figure, a 122, breaks the track record, breaks the Travers record. Bob Baffert sending this horse straight to the Breeders' Cup Classic off this race. He appears to have another monster, Andrew, but as far as that performance within itself, I really have no words for it.
Yeah, and wish we would have seen this one a little bit earlier on the scene, so we can see what this one would have done against some Triple Crown company. Because based on that performance, this horse, another horse that's just good for the sport. That performance, like you said, Bob, was unmatchable. The only thing that could possibly touch that was the frosted Met Mile, and that really put these 2 horses, although in different divisions, age-wise, we probably will meet up in the Classic. Just 2 of the best performances we've seen this summer. When you were on American Freedom, I kind of pondered the fact that maybe this horse is, a little bit of a rabbit, for American Freedom, or makes it easier for American Freedom. But that was not the case. This horse took the field as far, as fast as he possibly could, and it's not like this horse, this horse left everything out there, and I still think there was some reserve. I think this horse is going to move forward, maybe take a little break, get a little prep race going, maybe in September, October. But that was an incredible performance. I was at a loss for words, and just like I said before, growing up and seeing these type of horses in these last few years, this may be a horse that I can add to that list.
Yeah, come home the last quarter after going that fast early in less than 24 seconds. I mean, that is truly incredible. And look, I don't want to take anything away from American Freedom here either. And it's not, I'm not just defending the horse because it was my pick. I mean, this horse chased an extremely hot pace, was on it for a little bit of time early in the race to still run second and to get a 125 Timeform US speed figure. And I hope after Saturday we can put all this criticism to rest about Bob Baffert not being able to win at Saratoga. I mean, I think people forgot about the horses that he brought, before this 13-race slump, that won races like the Travers and won other races at Saratoga. He put on a performance and put on a show on Saturday. And these 2 horses, I mean, one was magnificent and the other one was very good. I mean, not many times in racing are you going to run a 125 Timeform US speed figure, Andrew, in 1.25 miles and lose. Brilliant performance by Arrogate, a very good performance by American Freedom. I thought Gunrunner was decent as well, but after those 3 horses, I want no one in this field. This race backed up my points about really not liking any 3-year-old this year. It's why I was all over the place when it came to the Triple Crown season, picking 3 different horses in 3 different races. I just didn't think this crop was that good. I think they proved it on Saturday. But whether Arrogate was facing anything or not, times don't lie. And if you're fast, you're fast. And that race was really fast.
And I agree with you, Bob. You mentioned on Gunrunner, that's another horse I like to take out here. This is a horse that just runs either into bad luck or runs into a horse that just can't seem to lose that day. But this one runs very well behind a set of horses. I know you're not interested in much else, Bob, but got to sound like a big homer here. But I'll take Governor Malibu out of this race one more time. This one bobbled hard at the start. Didn't appreciate any of that kickback being so far back, but rallied out pretty strong. Obviously wasn't chasing anybody, but with a brutal trip like that, maybe just gives me an overlay. But I gotta cash on this horse sometime, Bob. This horse owes me one.
Okay, race 12 was the race after the Travers, and usually after the big race is over, the crowd starts filing out. But not on this day, because we had probably, would you say, the second most popular horse on the Naira circuit, maybe behind Frosted at this point. Lady Eli makes her return off of unfortunate circumstances where it was actually life-threatening laminitis in both feet. A lot of people, including myself, never thought we'd have the pleasure of seeing such a magnificent horse run again. And not only did she run again off of a huge layoff, she was in a graded 1 stakes race. She chased a very hot pace that was set by their own Barnes Rabbit. Got a little bit of a wide trip late, and at the end loses to Strike Charmer. I'm kind of on the fence, Andrew. I'm not sure if she'll ever be the same again, and understandably so. However, the connections and a lot of people that know a lot more than me are saying that they love the effort, that they expect all systems go at this point. They don't think she'll lose again for the rest of the year. Hats off to Strike Charmer, but I wanted to first say, wanted to get your thoughts on Lady Eli going forward and her performance in this race specifically.
Yeah, without a doubt. And what a compelling story, Bob. And you know as well as I do. And people who see me on social media, on Twitter, know that I'm a big promoter, of the sport itself. I'm a big promoter of young people in the sport. How can we move forward in this sport as people? And this horse does that. This is a horse that is good for the sport. This is a horse that makes fans that don't know much about racing want to come because they see, a female horse, accomplishing what horses cannot.
Right.
And it was beautiful to see her, and she's such a beautiful horse as well. And she comes back in this grade too, and with half a furlong, if the race is half a furlong shorter, this horse wins the race, and everybody's happy. And and hats off to the Naira team for putting this race after the Travers.
Absolutely.
Knowing that people would stay for the Lady Eli race rather than close out with some sort of an allowance race afterward. It's hard to give up on a horse like this. I would definitely want to see what this horse does next, and not so much from a gambling perspective, just for a horse racing perspective.
Strike Charmer, magnificent ride by Junior Alvarado, who did not get caught up in that hot pace and just kept the horse away from Lady Eli to make sure that Lady Eli didn't look her in the eye. Because as I heard earlier this week, elite racehorses like Lady Eli, they don't know what it's like to lose. They don't like to lose at all. And when you're close enough to them so they can eye you, a lot of times they find a gear that they don't necessarily have in the mornings. I thought it was a good ride. I thought more than anything, not taking anything away from Strike Charmer, I thought Junior Alvarado won this race.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And obviously I went on my little Lady Eli rant there. But, hats off to Strike Charmer. An absolutely great performance. And Junior just knew where to get this horse. Got him to switch leads late in the race, all the way in that fourth half, I believe it was. And final 70 yards, just asked the horse a little bit, and that horse was gone. And the gallop out was strong as well. And looked like that horse wanted to run for a while. Junior really couldn't ease her down. So, hats off to a big performance. Unfortunately, if this race did not feature Lady Eli, I don't think the horse goes off at such big odds. Obviously you got a $57 horse there, but this horse could have been 15-1, in a race without Lady Eli. I say that because this is a good horse. This isn't a horse that doesn't belong to be here. This horse can compete with said groups.
Absolutely. Just again, lost in the shuffle with the Lady Eli story. So that'll do it for the Travers Day recap. Thank you for listening.